Yo, what's going on, everyone? So this is going to be a beginner's guide on understanding how to edit in Premiere Pro. So off rip, whenever it comes to editing, I cannot stress this enough. You want to make sure that all of your files are organized on both your File Explorer page, or I think it's called your Finders page on the Mac, and also organized in your Premiere Pro project. So for an example, I like to, whenever I'm editing, I like to have a raw footage folder. I like to have a project files folder for all my project files for that month of November. And then I like to also have an export folder for all my exported videos to be on. To create one of these folders, you're going to click on Control, Shift, and M, and that's going to create a new folder. I believe the hotkey on the Mac is going to be Command Shift N, and you'll be able to create a folder like that. So once you create all your folders, you can then open up Premiere Pro and then wait for it to load. Once Premiere Pro opens up, it's going to, this is its home page. You're going to click on New Project. You're going to name your project whatever your video is on. So I'm gonna put beginner's guide on how to edit in Premiere Pro. And then you're gonna choose a location that you want to save your project file at. So click on choose location. And then this is why you always want to create folders. So click on where your project files folder is at. Click on project files and then hit save. And then you can click on create. Now it's going to take you to this screen. To be honest, I really don't do anything on this screen. Everything I do will be in the next screen, which will be on the edit screen. But this is basically Premiere Pro stock footage that they have for you to use if you really want to use it. I never use it, but this is all their files or footage that they have. You can organize media. You want to stay organized. Organize media. Again, I do this in the editing process. But if you want to create a bin off rip, you can, like this. And but again, I like to do that in the editing process. You can name your sequence, what you're editing on. For the tutorial, beginner's guide on editing. And then once you do all of that, you're going to hit on the edits and then boom. Okay, so once you're in your project, there's a couple ways that you can import your media. So the first way is that where it says add media, you're going to click on import media, and then you can click on whatever videos that you want to import. You can click on multiple video clips by holding down Control, or on the Mac, it's going to be Command, and then just click on whatever you want and you can hit open and then it'll import it. Another way is that you can go into import. And it's literally it's going to be the same process. And then the last way that I always do is that since I have my folders organized, I can go into the folder and then just drag it straight into my project. And then boom, all of my clips are right here. Whenever it comes to organization, I also like to create certain bins for different things. Like for example, I'll create a bin called assets, and then in assets, if I want to have an adjustment layer for whenever I'm color grading, I can put it in here. If I have logos, I'll put it in here as well. If I have overlays with certain effects that I want to add on top of my videos, I'll put it in here. Another bin that I like to add is sound effects. I'll create that folder and then I'll go over to where my sound effects folder is at. And then I'll just drag and drop everything that I want to be used in a video into that folder. After you have yourself all situated out with your files or all your files that you want to use in the video, they're in your bins, you can finally start dragging your videos onto your timeline. So for an example, I click and drag a video clip onto my timeline, and now everything, I can press the space bar to play it, or the play button is right up here to play it back. It's a little laggy, my bad. My computer isn't like super, isn't really the best. You can go back a couple of frames, just if you want to go back one frame, you can, or on your keypad or keyboard, you can hit the arrow back key to go back. Same thing to go forward. If you want to go to the end of your clip, you just hit the down arrow, just like how I did. If you want to go to the beginning of your clip, you're going to hit the up arrow. After you have your video on your timeline, the next step that I like to do is go into sequence right up here. Click on sequence settings. And now this is where Premiere Pro is telling you the information that you had your camera settings set to, and you can change most of that in sequence settings. So I like to change my time base. Depending on what I'm editing, I like to change my time base to 23.976 frames per second. And then you could change your frame size right over here. Like if you want it in a vertical aspect, you can change it to that. And the dimensions for that is 1080 by 1920. I hit the OK button. This box will come up basically saying that everything that's on your timeline is either going to be altered in some way or form, whether that's zooming in too much, like cropping in or cropping out. And for an example, this is what it would look like when I have it in that vertical 9:16 format. But I'm gonna keep it at the widescreen format. Yeah, all of that you can do in sequence settings. Now, if you want to change your video into a certain dimension, you can go into sequence presets and you can change your dimensions. You can change your frame rate to a specific camera or a specific dimension for whatever you need it for. And to do that, you're going to click on Control N, or on the Mac computer, it'll be Command N. And then a sequence, a box will appear with all the presets for your sequence. I have custom sequences for before Premiere Pro came out with presets for social media, because this is all just for social media. I have TikTok, I have the Instagram post. Basically all that's going to be in here, and you have a 4:5, 30 frames per second. You have a 9:16, which is what we just had, that vertical frame rate or vertical frame size, 30 frames per second. And then you have a 1:1, which is a square format, 30 frames per second. So you can change this, even if you don't want it at 30 frames per second. After you click the OK button, say I want it in a square format, it's going to create a new sequence. Let me bring my video. This clip does not match sequences setting, change sequence to match the clip settings. I'm going to keep existing settings, and I'm going to show you how you can change your settings. So, which is basically what this means right here. So I'm going to keep settings, and you can go back into your sequence settings, and you can change this back to 23 frames per second, or so on and so forth. But yeah, let's go back. I want to keep it at this for now. So next, let's go over these tools right over here. You have your selection tool, which is your mouse tool. Basically, you can just select something, you can drag it, pretty self-explanatory. Next, you have your track selection tool. So basically, if you have multiple clips on your timeline and you have your track selection forward tool, I believe that's what it says. Yeah. Everything that you have this track selection forward tool icon on and beyond, is going to be selected and you can move all those clips forward. So for an example, I double click and I'm able to move both of those clips forward. Next, you have your ripple edit tool. We're going to come back to this because first I want to show you the razor tool, which is basically a split tool. You can cut up certain scenes that you want, go back to your selection tool, click on what you want to be deleted, and boom. Now this brings me to the ripple edit tool. So when I made that cut, you know how there's that dead space? If you don't want that dead space, well, first off, when it comes to the cut tool, you're gonna have this dead space right here. And then you can just click on the dead space, hit the delete button, and it's going to move all your clips forward. Just make sure that when you do that, there has to be a complete dead space in this area, in the area that you want to delete, for it to actually move everything over. If you have, for an example, I'm going to unlink this. If you have your audio file like expanded like so, and you want to delete this dead space, you're not going to be able to, because there's not enough room on your timeline for Premiere to move the rest of the clips over. So just keep that in mind whenever you're deleting things. So now let's go over to our ripple tool. And basically, to get past that dead space, if you want to trim a clip, you can select the end of the clip and then bring this, whatever you want to trim, and it's going to automatically get rid of that dead space and move all your clips over. So that's the ripple tool. Next, you have the slip tool. So basically the slip tool is, say you selected a small part of your video and you want to change where that clip starts at and where the clip ends at. This is where the slip tool comes into place. So I'm going to double click, and I'm going to move this backwards, and it should be able to, as you can see on the screen, it's picking a different selection from that clip that I want. I really don't use the slip tool. An easier way to do that is double click on your clip, and then it'll bring it over to this other monitor screen, and you can just click on, I'm gonna scroll this over. You can click on these bars right over here, and you can just drag the selection that you want to be on your timeline. So that's an easier way than using a slip tool, because you know exactly what you want and what you don't want. Next is the pen tool. This is so then if you want to add like a fade to your video, I added 2 points right over here. I just click on the line, and then once you see the plus sign, that's when you know you can add these points. And then I can have like a little fade. It'll fade down, and then it'll fade back up like so. So that's what the pen tool is for. You have your rectangle tool. If you want to create certain shapes, click on the rectangle tool on your main monitor, and then you're going to double click and drag out, and then it'll create a shape. And then on your timeline, you're going to have the shape that you just made. And then you have the hand tool. If you say you're zoomed in a little bit for some reason, you can just use the hand tool to go around, and if you want to look at something specific, you can do so. This is really good for whenever you're trying to mask something to get all your points more precise. And now last but not least, you have your type tool. So this is where if you ever want to create text, you click on the type tool, and then you click on your screen, and then you can just start typing. I'm gonna put Grant Lake. Once you click on your screen, on the right hand side, you're gonna see this box, which is going to be where you would do all your editing and changes for your text. So if I want to change the style of this text, I could do one of two things. I can double tap and highlight the whole text, and then I can change the font like so. Let's change it to Onyx. And then while it's highlighted, I can increase the size of it right over here. I can expand it like so. Another way you can change your text is you can click on the selection tool, and now click on your text until you see this type of box appear. And you could do the same thing. You could change the text like so. You can still do the same thing. And you can change the color down here. I'm gonna change it to this color. It's like an orangish yellow. And say I want everything to be completely centered in the middle of the frame. First, I like to go to the settings, this wrench icon, click on that, and then click on save margins. And this will give you a box to where how far you should go and put your text before it potentially goes out of frame. Whenever your audience is watching the video, it's not gonna, whatever they're watching on, it's not gonna go out of frame. So I like to have my save margins open. And if I want to center this text, I'll first go and click on center align text. I'll then go down, scroll down, and where it says align and transform, you're going to click align center horizontally, and then also hit align center vertically. And boom, it's completely in the center. You can see that this middle point matches up with this point right over here. This middle point matches up with this point right here. So you know for a fact it's in the middle. If you want to change your workspace, like say you want to start color grading, you're going to go into window right up here, workspaces, and then these are all the panels that you can change your program to be in for your specific need. The ones that I use the most is the editing one that I'm currently in. Whenever I'm color grading, I'll click on color, and then to the right of my screen, I will have all my color essentials for color grading and color correction. I like to, honestly, those are the only two major ones that I use. Sometimes I'll use assembly if I have a lot of clips to go through. I can easily look at all the clips in my assembly folder. You can also, if you want a list view of your clips, you can click on the list view, and I'll also give you all the information that each clip has, like so. Let me change it back to the icon. You can also change the size by scaling this up. Same thing. So if you want to access your effects, to add effects to your videos, you're going to go over to this double arrow, click on that, and then go down to where you see effects. And then these are all your effects that you have in your automatically in Premiere Pro, even audio effects, which is nice. For me, I only use certain effects in the effects tab, and I like to go into the search bar and look them up. One of them is cross dissolve, and I just type in cross because I also like to add in audio effects like constant power and exponential fade. And you can just, if it's an audio effect, you can just double click, drag it into your audio layer, and it'll be applied like so. To add a cross dissolve, I'm gonna go back to my effects tab. I'll click on cross dissolve, and I'm going to apply it to both clips. So when it says insufficient media, this transition will contain repeated frames. That's basically telling you that, I'm gonna click OK. That's basically telling you that both clips, like this clip right over here, this is the full length of the clip. This clip over here, that's the full length of the clip. And because they're both full lengths, at a certain point, you're going to get repeated frames because there's nothing for Premiere to fade the clip into. So for an example, it's going to freeze on this clip right over here. If you look very closely, when it starts to fade into the next clip, you'll see in the beginning, it's gonna look frozen. Those are the repeated frames. So look very closely. You see how there's no movement? These are the repeated frames, and then it'll start moving after a while. So to fix that, whenever you have that issue, to fix that, you just need to make sure that there's more frames ahead or at the end, like in the beginning or at the end of your clip for Premiere Pro to efficiently use the cross dissolve. And now once you finish editing your video, the last thing you're going to want to do is export it, save it to your computer. So to do that, you could do one of two things. You can go to File, go down to Export, and then hit Media. And then this export box is going to appear. Actually, you could do one of three things. You could do that, and this box is going to appear. Let's go back to Edit. You can come up here, hit Export. Same box is going to appear. Or you can hit the hotkey, which is Control M, or on Mac, Command M, and this box will appear. Now, one thing before you render out your video and do that, you want to make sure that you're setting your ins and out points to whatever you want Premiere to render. Because you can have multiple clips on your timeline, but if you only want a certain amount of clips to be rendered, you're going to want to set your ins and out points in those clips you want rendered. So then Premiere knows, okay, I only want this to be rendered and not this to be rendered. So to do that, you're going to go to the beginning of your video. Let's move this over. You're going to go to the beginning of your video and zoom in by pressing down the plus bar. And then you're going to hit I. That's going to set your in point. To set your out point, you're going to go to the end of the video. And then you're going to press O. And now that's you setting your in and out point. Premiere Pro knows that you want this section of the video to be rendered. Now, before you go into the rendering, if you're not fading out your video like so, if you don't have a fade like that, well, first off, I should say this. If you're fading your video, then what I'm about to say doesn't apply. But if you have just a hard cut at the end of your video, you're gonna have a black frame because you can see that there's dead space right over here. So to fix that, just bring your out point to exactly the end of your clip. And boom, so let's go back over to export. You're going to name your clip exactly what you plan on naming the video, especially for YouTube. This is kind of like outside of this whole tutorial, but you want to name this file what you want the title of your video to be on YouTube, so then YouTube knows exactly what type of video you're about to upload, so it knows, I believe, so it knows where to push it out to when it comes to its audience. So I'm gonna name this Beginner's Guide on How to Edit in Premiere Pro. And now you're gonna set your location. I have it in my exports, like so. And now you're gonna set your preset. Now you can, since this is gonna be a YouTube video for me, this is my preset that I always use, especially since I shot it in 4K. You can also, to make it very easy, if you have your sequence settings correct, you can just click on match preview or match sequence preview settings. Or if you want a specific preset, you're gonna go into more presets. And this is Premiere Pro's presets, all its presets for whatever you're looking for. And if you're looking for something specific like YouTube, you can go over to YouTube. And then these are all the YouTube presets that you can use. Now, if you don't want to always do these steps, like looking for that one specific preset, especially if you use that one preset a lot, yeah, you could just star it. And then once you click on it, press the OK button. And after you start, it'll come down to your favorites right down here. So it knows like, okay, these are the presets that you tend to use a lot. So you don't have to go through that step of looking through all your presets to find that one preset that you need. And then you want to click your format. I'm choosing 8.264. That's the format that I always use. And when you do that, sometimes it'll change your preset to something specific. Just make sure and double check that it's on the preset that you want it to be on. So, and then after that, you're gonna go down to your video. You can also, if your sequence settings is correct, you can just click on match source and it's going to match your video to exactly what your sequence settings is at. And then after that, almost there, you're gonna click on more. And then I like to checkbox render at maximum depth and use maximum render quality. And this is just going to up your quality when it comes to exporting your video. The only downside to that is that it's going to make your rendering process a little bit longer than normal. But I like my videos to be at the highest possible quality possible. And then I'll scroll down some more to where you see your bit rate encoding. And I usually use, depending on what I'm exporting, I like to use VBR2 pass, and I will change my VBR since this is going to be in 4K for YouTube. It's going to be 4456. You can go on Google and you could type in the bit rate needed for whatever you're rendering your video for. Like if you're rendering for Instagram, this is going to be different than if you're rendering it for YouTube. So once you have that all set up, you just hit export and then it'll start exporting your video. So yeah, it's going to take some time, especially if it's a long video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great day and I will see you next time. Peace.